Now welcome Emeritus Professor Michael Quinlan, University of New South Wales. And if you could give your name and state the capacity in which you appear today.
My name is Michael Gary Quinlan. I'm a professor at University of New South Wales, and I'm appearing independently to give evidence to this inquiry.
Thanks, Professor Quinlan. The line's a little bit scratchy. Maybe just a little bit more volume if we could, guys. Please. Excuse me. So, Professor Quinlan, I'm very well aware of your work, and I'm one of your major supporters. Now, and we recognise the work that yourself and Mr. Wright have done over the years. But what I wanted to talk to you about, I'm one of those that honestly believes, and I'll take the criticism from those in the transport industry who want to disagree with me, and I speak of my own personal experiences here, that I honestly, strongly, fully support the belief that remuneration and safety are linked. There is no argument in my mind. And the reason, Professor, is I know when I was a young owner-driver, excuse me, cutting my teeth, paying off my home and my truck running through the Pilbara, Kimberley and the Northern Territory, I was paid by a kilometre rate as an owner-driver, and I was paid by every cubic metre that I loaded or unloaded. I was paid by every carton I packed, and I even got $3 a page to write an inventory. There was no fatigue management in Western Australia, no set fatigue management laws. It was the Wild West. Our fatigue management was, oops-a-daisy, I think I better pull over. And hope to God I could get going again and get back to Perth and do another turnaround and get back to Darwin. And it clearly led the way, this is the other end of the scale, that we were remunerated by the more hours that we drove and the more kilometres we drove. Now, I'm not arguing that. What I'm arguing is the other end of the scale, Professor Quinlan. Sorry about that, we've got some construction work going on here in York Street. But the other end of the scale, Professor Quinlan, is those that were running all hours to try and make ends meet because the rate was so bad, where they actually led them to either skipping fatigue or just, not managing fatigue. Any truck driver worth their weight in salt would never try and lie that they haven't had a little doze and gone over the white line or the other side, and I'm one of them, and more than one occasion. But also those that couldn't keep up their maintenance, or there was the opportunity, or not the opportunity, there was also the times when I quoted yesterday, I knew of a subcontractor who didn't even pay his insurance when he was running triple road trains to the Kimberley. So, Professor Quinlan, some witnesses have said, or not witnesses, some submissions have actually said there is absolutely no link. But when I invite them to come and put forward their case to this inquiry, they wouldn't turn up. One was an operator in Perth, Bustleton Freight Services, and another was, who's that other mob? Some other mob. I'll find a name for you that wouldn't turn up here in Sydney. They're not a trucking entity. Professor Quinlan, over to you.
Have you got my statement?
I'm sorry, sorry, Professor, what?
Have you got the statement I printed?
No, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the statement yet.
Well, there's a
I'm sorry.
statement I sent to the inquiry, and they promised it would be distributed today.
Oh, okay. Well, we just started, and I apologise, Professor Quinlan. I don't have it in front of me, but why don't you talk to it? It's sent electronically.
I'll make sure when you've got it.
Jeez, that's hard to hear. Professor Quinlan is very hard. Professor Quinlan, are you on loudspeaker or something?
Yeah, I'll try.
Just while you're looking, Professor Quinlan, I've just been informed it's been sent.
I've got off it now. Is that better?
That's better. Yeah, yep. Fantastic. Thanks.
Well, the statement I did, which they said they were going to print off for all people today, briefly recounts my experience in doing research for the New South Wales inquiry in 2000, the pay safety review I did for the federal government in 2008, the submission I wrote subsequently to the establishment of the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal, Then a series of papers I published in academic journals on trucking safety and pay connection.
Yeah, Professor Quinlan, we do have it. We do have it. So I want you to speak to it, if you could, please. Well, I should have asked you to do your opening statement. My apologies. Professor Quinlan, are you there? We've just seen to... has Professor Quinlan dropped out? What is it, sorry?
He's still there.
He's still there? Apologise everyone, we got a bit of a glitch. Are we still on broadcasting? Okay. Well, I told you I hate this technology. We put a man on the moon 50 years ago and we still can't get this worked out. Crying out loud. I could do a rendition of the Eagles Hotel California while we're waiting, but no. All right. Look, let's suspend for a minute and we'll give Professor Quinlan an opportunity to get on, and I'll go say good day to Mike over there.
I would say, and it's really a pity, that statement. I was promised that it would be there.
No, we've got it now, but I'm really keen to hear from you.
Okay,
while we've got the time.
Okay, so I got up to talking about what I'd done, but what I did then for this submission is I reviewed everything I could find that was published on pay, subcontracting and safety in the trucking industry since 2012. And I found about 20 papers in refereed journals, or 3 PhDs, and 1 refereed conference paper. Of those, there were 15 papers that dealt directly with the connection, and all of those studies found there was a connection between pay, reward systems and safety. And I've summarised the findings in my statement. But there are some nuances in some of the findings, as you would expect, but I found no study that refuted the connection. All the studies accepted and confirmed that connection. So it just reinforces the argument now that we have evidence stretching over 40 years showing there's a connection between pay and safety in trucking. This is not a unique relationship. There has been connections found between pay and safety in other industries, which makes denial that there is a connection particularly surprising. However, the evidence in trucking is now quite substantial. The other bit of my submission, which I might briefly raise, is that in relation to this, your terms of reference about the impact on families, I was associated with a major study of the impact of workplace death, and that the findings of those studies are summarised in the report, but a survey found that of the 12 to 20 people on average that are affected by workplace fatality, and this included truck drivers, 61% experienced post-traumatic stress disorder, 44% experienced major depressive disorder, and 42% experienced prolonged grief disorder. So trucking is one of the most dangerous occupations and the impact on families are profound. The four other points I would make about that is that our study showed that families want clear, comprehensive and timely information on how and why death occurred. They do not want the deceased to be objectified in legal proceedings, but to use the names. Thirdly, they want identification of responsibility, and if there's a breach of legislation, timely prosecution with significant penalties that will act as a real deterrent. And fourth, and most importantly, they want remedial measures taken so that other families do not experience that sort of tragedy. So they want effective preventive action.
And Professor Quinlan, with your work and your involvement with Australia's road transport industry, how do we do that? What's coming out of your findings? We talk a lot about it, but what I'm very, very keen to do is work with the trucking industry, because only the truckies know this. We don't need pointy heads sitting in Parliament. We just need them to implement the rules and the laws that the trucking industry want. So what has your findings come back with how to address this?
Well, clearly one thing you need to do is effectively regulate the bike gangs and also ensure that there is a reasonable level of pay in the industry, irrespective of employment status, so that owner drivers get a reasonable return, small companies are not squeezed, and the competition between owner drivers and employee drivers doesn't lead to a race to the bottom with significant adverse effects on health and safety. In my view, that will make a more sustainable industry and make trucking a more attractive career and service the regional sector much better.
So, Professor Quinlan, I'd be keen on your thoughts here. And unfortunately, when I get to chair it, I get to talk too much because I don't like sounding my own voice, but it's something I've been doing for so many years. I don't know of a truck driver that sets out in the morning thinking I might kill myself today, or if I can't kill myself, I'll kill some other poor bugger. And yet it is becoming this nation, and I'm very careful because some hijack the argument and derail it. But if we are losing people on the road, we are losing truck drivers on the road. And the worst part is our truckies just want to be safe. So the message gets so warped. But since when is it in the Australian psyche that when our kids are 16 and 17, all we do is talk about we're so worried when they get their driver's licence, even though they had a couple hundred hours getting it, and we don't rest as parents until we hear the car come up the driveway and the key go in the door. But all of a sudden, when our truckies are losing their lives on the road, it's just a part of doing business. Have I got that mixed up?
Yeah, look, I think that it does resonate with the community more broadly because they're worried about the roads and road safety. But the drivers do try, within the constraints they're under, to do a very professional job. But the health effects are not just crashes, and that's the other tragedy. The studies I cite include some showing that drivers have very serious health issues as well, and mental health, physical health. So they don't even see some of the toll that goes with the industry and drug use as well. And all these have been connected to pay system as well.
So, Professor Quinlan, with all your years of work around this area, you did touch on in your opening statement that, and I can't remember the figures, but there was no evidence to squash the argument that remuneration and safety are linked. So, just for those doubters out there, and I have no problem if people have a difference of opinion with me, I've got no problem. But what I do want is to have the opportunity to engage in the debate and see if I've got it wrong. So how many transport companies, truck drivers, owner drivers, did you, and I apologise if it's in your submission, did you engage with in all these years to come to your findings? Yeah, it's a loaded question, sorry.
Yeah, look, I I think in the 2000 inquiry, I spoke to about 100 different stakeholders. Some were drivers, operators, families, people, and obviously I've had contact since then. Probably so somewhere between 100 and 200, I suspect, over the years. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Professor Quinlan, in the remaining minutes that we've got, I do appreciate you making that last minute adjustment so you could turn up today. Is there anything else you wish to add before I move on to our next witness?
Not really. I just emphasise the point that the relationship is being tested by these studies, and if they don't find a connection, they'll say so. So it's pretty compelling evidence when you get that sort of level of result.
All right, Professor Quinlan, thank you very much for your time today, and keep up the good work. We know where to find you should we need to
Can I make one other statement?
Yes, of course you can.
The thing about the workplace impact of debt on families, I said about 12 to 20, on average workplace, about 12 to 20 people are affected. The findings of that study really matched the families that I spoke to during the 2000 inquiry, and subsequent to that, I spoke to a number of families that drivers have been killed, and so those findings really match the interviews I did with drivers. And we interviewed employers and unions as well, and it really matched their responses as well.
Thank you.
That's all right.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Quinlan. I'll probably chuck one other line in there, that I have spoken to so many drivers who have said to me they are sick of going to the funerals of their mates. So I'd say the knock-on effect would probably be a lot greater than that too. Anyway, that's my thoughts, and I'll share that with you. Professor Quinlan, thank you so much for your time. Now I'm going to call. I've got to do the official side. Thanks, Professor Quinlan. Now for the official side. Now, Steve, I'm going to have to ask, because you are filming, you know what to do here, mate. So